Hey everyone, what a great article. And once again, coming out of the Financial Post by one of the contributors that I definitely have a lot of respect for, namely Philip Cross. Headline, Canada's civil service has forgotten it's supposed to serve us. By removing regular contact with the public, the civil service risks diminishing its own importance in the lives of Canadians. No kidding there. Wow. I mean, if you've been out there and, ventured in any one of these supposedly government services, right, which you pay their paychecks. That's the thing that I'm sure I'm going to agree with a lot with Philip Cross in this article is these are people that are gainfully employed by you. And even if you haven't expressly given your permission to pay for their employment, they get it regardless. So, under that pretense, under that kind of scenario, they should be somewhat meek and at least willing to give you, their employer, the respect that you deserve for whether you choose to or not being the ones that are ultimately on the hook for their paychecks. But if you've been to, whether it's the service center as far as provincial services or federal services, that's not the case anymore. They look at you as their enemy, as an opponent or someone that they can manipulate or look down upon or treat as second-class citizens. And we all know this because, like I say, no matter which side you reside on the political aisle, I've heard people with this kind of grievance from both sides. So trying to pretend otherwise, well, that just means if you do, you're just trying to play political opportunism at this point. Because you know damn well that the public sector, those that are supposed to serve the public, don't do that. No, they control, dictate, and micromanage every aspect of your social and economic lives. And if you don't kiss their ass or bow before them, well, they have a lot of power to cause a lot of harm for you, even though you're forced to pay for. So whether it's all these services that they offer, which are once again all paid for by you, the taxer, and you're forced to pay for them. But even if they say, oh, you're not deemed worthy of these services, or they're not going to give you or offer you these services, well, we're still going to take your money regardless. So once again, like all the incentives, when you have this kind of giant amount of bureaucracy and central planning authoritarians and bureaucrats that are unaccountable, unelected, and have so many layers of protection that it's almost impossible to remove them or fire them. Yeah, no wonder they have such a sense of entitlement, such a sense of superiority over the very people that they're supposed to serve. And actually, before I actually read this article, I just want to point out, these are the people that live in those gated communities. And these are the people that are actually a major contributor to the massive difference in regards to like the housing market or everything else that you see out there. There's a great divide. There is a serious divide that is actually a real thing between the have and the have-nots. The difference is if you work for the government, where your paycheck is guaranteed because the government can force everyone to pay them, right? Yeah, you get all access to the greatest housing. Like you have much higher pay than your counterparts in the private sector, even if they're doing something that's even remotely resembling the same kind of jobs. I mean, these are the people, like I say, if you want to talk about class divide, all you people that are into identity politics or the division of such, yeah, there's the glaring discrepancy. There's the glaring divide. And in your own personal situation, whether it's your family members, friends, or anyone else that you know that's where the real divide truly takes place. Sorry for that reality check, but we have to start talking about these very uncomfortable things that have greatly contributed to this massive division among the populace, and not just in Canada, but you're seeing it's happening all over the world. Well, in the Western world, predominantly. This is a special to Financial Post, October 23rd, 2018. Canada's civil service is increasingly isolated physically from the public it nominally serves. More and more, the civil service treats the public at best as inconvenience and at worst, a security threat, right? Yeah, that's the other thing. They can treat you like garbage, right? Talk to you not just as a second-class citizen, but deny you these services that you're supposed to be afforded, that you're supposed to be guaranteed. That's the whole premise of why they can steal and plunder your income, right? But when they do something that's outrageous or against what you as the public would perceive as, hey, it's only fair. You should treat me as a decent person. I pay into all these things, so treat me fairly. And if you raise your voice in opposition when they're standing there saying, nope, sorry, sir, the policy tells me I don't have to do none of it. You know how that is. You know how they're just that blank stare, or that kind of, you see that little bit of smirk that they have when they're like, oh, I don't have to do nothing. And you're going to have to deal with what I say, whether you like it or not. But if you dare at that particular point, that particular junction, to raise your voice or to show that you have some kind of anger towards these people, well, yeah, hey, oh, no, hey, if you raise your voice, well, they'll either hang up on you or tell you to leave or call security or call the police. So once again, you don't even have any pretense at that point that you should be able to hold these people accountable. Like I say, they literally deem the public, the people that they're supposed to serve, that, the people that actually pays for their salaries, they deem you as basically their subject, their serfs. What an entitled mentality. As the public's presence and voice fades from the bureaucrats' view, the isolation encourages the civil service to be captured by special interest groups or pursue its own interests. The Bank of Canada built a separate wing so outsiders can attend conferences without entering its headquarters. Statistics Canada now restricts visitor access to its library, even though taxpayers fund it. The Sports Centre in Gatineau, Quebec has partitioned off employees and automated the entrance to prevent interaction with customers. My Private Sports Club in Ottawa still greets customers in person. Some barriers separating the civil service from the public were erected post 9/11 to secure highly public and symbolic structures like the Parliament buildings. However, the practice has spread in most federal government departments and is being copied by more provincial and local governments. Greg Easterbrook of The Atlantic points out that ostensibly such measures are to keep terrorists out. The primary impact is to keep average people out so lawmakers and officials can interact exclusively with lobbyists, publicists, and donors. He partly attributes rising popular anger about politics to the growing separation of the public service from ordinary people. And the civil service's overreaction to security threats has had, to borrow a phrase from William F. Buckley, all the grace and agility of an elephant cornered by a mouse. The idea that terrorists are plotting attacks on statistical agencies or city halls is a fanciful ruse to avoid the nuisance of public visits while inflating the bureaucracy's already exaggerated sense of self-importance. However, over time, this isolation further damages the relevance of the public service to ordinary people. Economist Todd Buchholz recounts how China's bureaucracy in the 15th century similarly ended up alienating the masses with its growing detachment. With each edict, each stoppage, and each embargo, the Chinese bureaucrats ended up building their own great wall separating the government from the people, which ultimately crippled public support for the emperors. For business owners, putting unnecessary barriers between staff and clients is unthinkable because staying attuned to customers' needs is fundamental for survival. The business world understands that online surveys are no substitute for direct communication. That might make them slightly more vulnerable to problems, but the alternative of physical separation would be a death sentence for most firms. So once again, yeah, all you people that are scared of free markets or actual businesses having so much power, no, businesses can only function and flourish if they're profitable, and that can only happen if they're appealing to their customer base. Every business owner knows this instinctively. Well, until they found a way to use government to monopolize the industry, then they don't care. But once again, that's fault of government. That's a fault of government legislation. And those lobbying efforts are always directed at government. No independent business, no private company has any pretense of being able to screw over their employees because employees will just go elsewhere. Government, there's only one. That's the problem with having a monopoly on anything that has to do with service or anything that deals with the public, is when you have only one, right? Why would they, and they're protected in such a manner, and not only just protected as a business, but government, which is like they're an institution of government, can protect them with laws, regulations, policies, and procedures. I mean, think of the myriad of ways that government and the bureaucrats can protect themselves from actually having to own up to what they're supposed to do or how they're supposed to serve the public. Businesses have to, and you know that. That's why you see businesses rise and businesses they fall. Government, it sticks around. It's always around. Why is that? Because, well, first of all, they don't have a profit margin. They can just steal from people. When you can just steal from people to sustain your income or your livelihood, well, yeah, you can keep that going. Well, unless people stop allowing you to steal from them. Taxation is theft. You might want to think about that, folks. Do as much as you can to prevent as much theft as possible, and then you greatly hinder and hamper their efforts to completely dominate and control you. But just some advice there, just some friendly advice. Anyways, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below. But I mean, come on, folks. Of course we all know this. The public sector, I don't even know why we use it. Listen, or public servants. Well, I'm glad they're saying at least public sector, because public servants, servants to their political master. That's it. And why? Because they have this concept that, well, it's their political master that signs a paycheck. Well, you know, your political master might, you know, when you see on your check, there might be, the government of Canada that suggests that or the government, or the province, the government of a particular province you're in, they might, you know, have their seal as to who pays your paycheck. But all government money comes from stealing from the private sector. You know, the public, the very people that you're supposed to serve. Great article once again by Philip Cross. And I'm glad to see there are lots of Canadians out there. And yeah, support these people, especially in the independent media like the Post publications, right? These people function still, you know, on a profit margin. So support them. Otherwise, well, if you don't support those in the private sector that do things voluntarily, well, you'll be stuck with those who, you know, like CBC, and you know how that plays out. Well, when they don't have to work off a profit margin, they can just steal to say whatever they got to say. Well, they're going to say whatever they got to say, and it's not going to be based or grounded on anything that's remotely objective, reasonable, or logical, or moral. And you've seen that, too, time and time again. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.